Welcome to the August 12, 2019 County Commission meeting. I'm going to ask Sheriff Fuson to call our meeting to order. If you would, please remain standing for the pledge led by Commissioner Tangi Smith and the invocation by our chaplain, Commissioner Joe Creek.
All rise. Oh yes, this Honorable Board of County Commissioners is now in session pursuant to adjournment. Now may God save this state and this Honorable Board of County Commissioners. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God.
Someone said we need leaders who are men and women of integrity and wisdom. And we should thank God that we have and live in a country where that privilege of choosing our leaders. We must never take that responsibility lightly. It also says in the Bible for us to pray for those in authority and those that may live peaceful and quiet lives in all godliness and holiness. That is in the Bible in 1 Timothy 2:2. We thank you for this legislative body. We just pray that you're with us, guide and direct us tonight on our decisions we made, and let's respect each other's views. For it's in Christ's name I pray. Amen. Amen.
Would you please tally the roll?
You have 21 present, 0 absent.
If I could have Mr. Andrew Kester, our director of our VSO, to come forward. Andrew, I think you want to bring some folks with you. So. Yeah. Do you want to say a few words first? Okay, I have a proclamation, but Mr. Kester's asked to say a few words, so I'm going to let him go first.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
What I've done today is the mayor is going to do a proclamation for the Veteran Service Organization celebrating our 75 years of serving our veterans in Montgomery County. And what I've done is I've invited as many representatives, not only from our office, but our past employees. We've had 29 employees in the last 75 years serving our veterans. Many of those are deceased, but I have also invited a lot of the family members that are here also, and also my VSO committee members. So what I want to read, I just want to read the 29 names that have served our veterans. James Lacey, Lottie Atkins, John Rubel, Roy Burton, Mary Burton, Paul Burton, Art Jackson. His daughters, Darcy and Amy, are here representing him. Thank you for coming. Helen Sailors, Doris Rinker, Charlie Stevens, Lindsay Chandler, Jerry Rivers. Miss Joyce Rivers is here. Jerry has passed. Thank you for coming. Pat Rader, Dave Ross is here, previous assistant director. Kelly Messenberg Brown is one of our CSOs. Vicki White is one of our admin assistants. Stacy Hopwood, assistant director. Sandy Britt, previous VSO. Marlo Johnson, Frank Murr, Frankie DeJesus, John Escato, Manny Nunez, Cindy Layton, Cindy here. John Brown, Raquel Madison, Kimberly Byers, and Linda Douglas. And our VSO committee is Commissioner Lewis, Commissioner Woodruff, Commissioner Smith, and Dr. Dewey Browder, and we have Rob Salome and Doug Hambrick. But I just want to appreciate all these folks for what we've done and we've accomplished last 75 years, and we continue, and we look forward to another 75 years.
Awesome. So I'd like to read this proclamation by the county mayor. In January 1944, a spokesman from the local post of the American Legion called attention to the court of the increasing work in the preparation and handling of claims of ex-servicemen, as well as their widows and dependents versus the U.S. government. They asked for an appropriation in the amount of $600 from the county with a joint match from the city for the purpose of establishing an ex-servicemen's bureau. And whereas the ex-servicemen's bureau was established and became a part of Montgomery County government, where a paid position was established to provide preparation and handling of claims. The American Legion Post 7 continued paying for office space, office supplies, postage, telephone, and equipment until 1991. And whereas in November 1994, Montgomery County, by resolution, established an ex-servicemen's bureau committee, and in February 1995, the name was changed to the Veterans Service Organization to better familiarize the general public of its purpose. And whereas today, the Veterans Service Organization has evolved in Montgomery County, currently employing a staff of 9, which includes 7 benefit officers and 2 office managers. Over the course of the last 75 years, a total of 29 staff members have been employed. Whereas VSO provides veterans with assistance in applying for benefits to include disability compensation, non-service connected pension, survivor benefits, GI Bill, and other educational benefits, vocational rehabilitation, appeals, and retrieval of military service and discharge records. And whereas in 2018, the Montgomery County Veterans Service Organization staff members assisted 7,970 veterans, and through VA compensable benefits, veterans living in Montgomery County received $323,000 in 2018. Now, therefore, I, Jim Durrett, Mayor, Montgomery County, Tennessee, do hereby honor and congratulate our Veterans Service Organization upon celebrating its 75th anniversary, an extraordinary organization of service-minded individuals striving to assist those individuals and families who have sacrificed for the freedoms we all enjoy today. Thank you, VSO, and keep up the great work.
Thank you, Andrew.
You're going to have to go and get in the middle to get a picture. Commissioners, our first item of business is approval of the July 15th, 2019 and July 25th, 2019 minutes. Is there a motion for approval? Commissioner Ray, second. Commissioner Pritchard. Any discussion on the minutes? If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
You have 21 yeses, 0 noes, 0 abstentions.
Next item on our agenda is our zoning resolutions. The first resolution is CZ 9, 2019, application of Bone, Henry, Strange, and Ward from AG to E1A R1. Is there a motion for approval? Commissioner Gannon, is there a second? Commissioner Woodruff, any discussion? Commissioner Joe Smith.
After a little bit of discussion with some citizens, and I think what we need to do with this is defer it to September and give the developer a chance to do the intersection study that was asked of him. I think it'd be fair to the citizens, and I think it would also give me some leverage or statistics to take to the state to use with TDOT to get intersection improvements put in place over the next 3 to 4 years before the development was completed.
Is that in the form of a motion?
Form of motion to defer till the September
the
1st meeting.
9th?
9th.
September 9th. Is there a second? Commissioner Harper, any discussion on the amendment? Or on the deferral, I'm sorry. No, seeing no discussion, if you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
You have 19 yeses, 1 no, 1 abstention.
Thank you, ma'am. CZ 9, 2019 is deferred until September the 9th. Next is CZ 11, 2019, application of William Witkowski, David Spottiswood, and Justin Jensen from AG to AGC. Is there a motion for approval? Commissioner Beal, is there a second? Commissioner Smith, any discussion on CZ 11, 2019? Commissioner Arnold Hodges.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm sure all the commissioners received a packet through email from one of the men that spoke here last week, and it shows pictures and explains the problems that this distillery can bring to this community. And it's a lot of them. And I would ask my fellow commissioners tonight to put the people of this community, put their thoughts in respect. Vote against this thing tonight. I know we have a large crowd here tonight, and I'd love to see a standing of people, the one that's here for this resolution or zoning case, if you're for it. Thank you. Now, what about if you're against it? Thank you. Well, this tells a story to me. The people of this community don't want it, and I'll be voting against it tonight, and I ask you fellow commissioners to put these people's thoughts into to respect, and they're tax-paying citizens just like anyone else. And I do have a concern for the rights of people that owns property. They can do what they want to with it, but when it affects the livelihood of people in the community, that's a different story. And that's what's happening here. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner Beal?
Thank you. I am actually going to ask you to do the opposite. I'm going to ask you to vote in favor of this, and here's why. I have talked to several people, just like I said last week, that are both for and against. There have been opportunities to ask questions, get information. I asked several questions about some of their concerns last week, and I feel like Mr. Witkowski answered every single one of those questions. And he has a safety plan in place for every single concern that has been addressed, every single one. There was an informational meeting at the public library this past Saturday. There weren't a lot of people there, but I can tell you that every single issue that has come up, there has been a solution offered and in place in the event that something were to happen. I actually went back and looked at the RPC minutes and the commission video from 2016, back when this first came up. My problem here is this is the exact same application that was brought to us 3 years ago. But for some reason, the RPC decided to vote against this time, but they were in favor of it last time. So if it's the exact same application, I don't understand what the difference is, other than it was a political reason. That's the only thing I can think of. So I understand the concerns of folks that live out there. There were 3 residents that attended the meeting on Saturday that were opposed to it. They are now okay with it. I confirmed that with all 3 of them that were there. And those were 3 of the 6 people that I talked to on the phone. So I feel that had the information been better presented out there, and if people would have asked more questions, those issues would have been addressed to their satisfaction. So I'm going to ask you guys to vote in favor. Thank you.
Anyone else? Any comments on CZ 11, 2019? If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
You have 7 yeses, 13 noes, and 1 abstention.
Thank you, ma'am. CZ 11, 2019 fails. Next on our agenda is CZ 12, 2019, application to Tommy Head from AG to M2. Is there a motion for approval? Commissioner Beal, is there a second? Commissioner Knight, any discussion on CZ 12, 2019? Commissioner Beal.
Thank you. There was some information that was provided to us in our emails earlier today. I'm not sure if everybody had the opportunity to look at that, but in my opinion, that is a decision changer. Reason being is because what we were not told was that there was a TDEC violation that was reported in November. Don't get me wrong on the date, you have to go back and check in your email, but they were given a cease and desist order to stop operation, and I'm being told that they just stopped last month. I've also been told that there was an operation just over the county line in Cheatham County that they had to stop this past Saturday. Now, I don't know whether or not that's completely accurate or not, but I mean, there's pictures. Go back and look at the pictures. There's 24 pictures. You've got pictures of oil spills on the ground. You've got pictures of oil running into a lake. It's all in your guys' email. So I'm going to ask you guys to please vote against this. Thank you.
Commissioner Joe Smith.
I got the same email Commissioner Beal did. What I'd like to do is ask for deferral on this one also, because that only shows the investigative side and does not show the repairs or anything that was done to fix any remedies that TDEC had. The cease and desist, what I was told, came from Building and Codes after a conversation with Director Streeter. That actually came from Building Codes, I want to say in February, late February or March. And the complaint did not come from TDEC to Building Codes. It came from a sheriff's officer to Building Codes. So I'd like to ask to defer this a month and give the property owner time to get us the information from TDEC of what they did to remedy any situation in that notice.
And that's in the form of a motion.
Yes, sir.
Is there a second? Commissioner Harper, any discussion on the deferral? If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
You have 17 yeses, 4 noes, and 0 abstentions.
Thank you, ma'am. CZ 12 is deferred until September the 9th. Next is CZ 13, 2019, application of Connie and David Hassel from AG to E1A. Is there a motion for approval? Commissioner Beal, second. Commissioner Rasnick, any discussion on CZ 13, 2019? If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
You have 21 yeses, 0 noes, 0 abstentions.
CZ 13 is approved. CZ 14, 2019, application of Christian and Messina Black from AG to E1. Is there a motion for approval? Commissioner Smith, second. Commissioner Lewis, any discussion? That was Commissioner Joe Smith, by the way. Ms. Jackson?
Thank you.
Any discussion on CZ 14? If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
You have 21 yeses, 0 nos, 0 abstentions.
Thank you, ma'am. CZ 14 is approved. CZ 15, 2019, application of the Russell Firm Incorporated, formerly known as Russell and Waddell Incorporated, from E1 to AG. Is there a motion for approval? Commissioner Riccone. Is there a second? Commissioner Keene. Any discussion on CZ 15? If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
You have 21 yeses, 0 nos, 0 abstentions.
Thank you, ma'am. That's all of our zoning. I know we had a lot of people in attendance tonight. We thank you for coming out and watching over county government. We'll just pause for just a couple of minutes to allow those folks that would like to leave to leave. Commissioners, will now move into our resolutions on our agenda. Our first resolution is 1981, resolution to charge for notary public services in the Montgomery County Clerk's Office. Is there a motion for approval? Commissioner Harper, second. Commissioner Albert. Any discussion on 1981? Commissioner Knight.
Just want to confirm that it's a free service provided by the clerk's office, correct?
Yeah, Ms. Jackson, would you want to address that?
I will be glad to. Commissioner Knight, as you know, I called and emailed you a couple of times before the informal to try to make sure that everyone understood on your poll that it is a service that's offered now for free. It is not anything we're mandated by the state to do. So at this point, it's becoming more and more taxing on the employee's time. We had someone come in the other day that asked for 82 documents to be notarized. So obviously, those services that we were providing as a customary service are now slowing down our title and registration process and other services that we are required to do. So it wasn't, do we charge or not charge? It's basically, do we charge and continue to help pay for personnel because of the increased service, or do we discontinue the service? So that, I think, was a little bit misunderstood.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions, discussion on Resolution 1981? If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
We have 21 yeses, 0 nos, 0 abstentions.
Thank you, ma'am. Resolution 1982 is a resolution of the Montgomery County Board of Commissioners to amend Resolution 19110, adopting term limits for various committees. Is there a motion for approval? Commissioner Knight, second. Commissioner Arnold Hodges. Any discussion on 1982? If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
You have 21 yeses, 0 nos, 0 abstentions.
Thank you, ma'am. Resolution 1983, is a resolution to establish amended rules of procedure for medium decorum by the Montgomery County Commission. Is there a motion for approval? Commissioner Butt, second. Commissioner Tangi Smith. Any discussion on 1983? Commissioner Knight.
I'll let Commissioner Gannon go first, considering he did push the button and then it switched over. So I'd like to lend to him that opportunity.
Thank you, Mayor. As we talked last week, I would like to make an amendment to number 5 under that. On everyone's desk, you will see a sheet that shows the amendment to it. I will read the amendment, and you will see in bold lettering the difference. No person, excluding Montgomery County staff and elected officials, which is added, will be allowed to deposit or present documentations, material, publications, or other articles at the desk in the area of commission floor without prior approval of the chair or sergeant at arms, which has been added, who upon approval shall obtain copies of the same and cause the same to be distributed by members of the Montgomery County staff to each commission member in a manner consistent with dignity and proceedings. And we're adding, the individuals wishing to distribute materials will be notified by the following. Individuals that choose to address the commission during a public comment period will be advised of distribution rules on official forms that require prior to addressing the commission. The chair will announce at every meeting that any speakers requesting information be distributed as outlined above shall be provided the copies of the sergeant at arms for distribution. I would like to offer that as an amendment to rule number 5 on 19.8-3.
We have a motion to amend 19.8.3 as stated by Commissioner Gannon. Is there a second? Commissioner Pritchard? Any discussion on the amendment itself? Commissioner Smith, Tangi Smith, you want to speak on the amendment, or you want to wait till we go back to the, okay. So we're now voting on the amendment as read by Commissioner Gannon. If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change your vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
You have 21 yeses, 0 noes, 0 abstentions.
Thank you, ma'am. Now we are back on 19.8.3 as amended. Any discussion? Commissioner Knight, I'm going to let you, I don't know if somebody beat you in, but you yielded, so I'm going to give you first shot.
Okay, thank you, sir. I'd also like to offer an amendment to item number 7. As worded, it says no live broadcast from within the commission chambers of its proceedings in whole or in part is allowed. Commissioners, I want to thank you for your diligence in attempting to maintain safety measures for our legislative body. We need to ensure safety while maintaining openness and transparency. With that said, I've placed on your desk documents. These consist of 1, the Tennessee Constitution, specifically Article 1, Section 1 and 19, which states that all power is inherent in the people, and all free governments are founded on their authority and instituted for their peace, safety, and happiness, for the advancement of those ends. They have at all times an unalienable and indefeasible right to alter, reform, or abolish the government in such manner as they may think proper. Item 19 says that the printing press shall be free to every person to examine the proceedings of the legislature or of any branch or officer of the government, and no law shall ever be made to restrain the right thereof. The free communication of thoughts and opinions is one of the invaluable rights of man, and every citizen may freely speak, write, and print of any subject, being responsible for the abuse of that liberty. I'll quote our county attorney when he says, "The spirit of this law in Section 19 allows for and includes recording devices, be it live or not live, in that in today's world we perform digital printing of media and digital publication of information." The First Amendment of our U.S. Constitution allows an individual to express themselves through publication and dissemination. It is part of the constitutional protection of freedom of expression. In regards to Resolution 19-8-3, I've consulted with CTAS, the Tennessee County Commissioners Association, Charlie Curtis himself, and the county attorney. The consensus is that the same. This resolution, if passed as is, will put the county at risk for a potential winnable lawsuit. It opens up the idea that constitutional freedoms will be infringed on and places a huge distrust in government, specifically ours. Yes, we have our YouTube feed. However, there's a delay in that feed, and though seemingly insignificant, places the county in a position that questions true transparency. I've also placed on your desk a copy of the AG's opinion on recording and live streaming. According to the opines of the AG, the county cannot outright ban live stream and/or recordings of any kind. CTAS went on to clarify via email through their team of legal individuals, which you also have in your possessions, that there is no difference between live streams and recording. This is semantics, plain and simple. According to Wesley Robertson of CTAS, he's made it clear that based on the recommendation from their team of attorneys, this resolution will not be consistent with the AG's opinions. And he has definitely confirmed the risk of a winnable litigation. Commissioners, I propose that we amend number 7 to state as follows. The public may conduct live stream provided they submit notice of their intent to do so within a minimum of 48 hours prior to each meeting in writing to the county mayor's office. 2, live streaming and recording of any kind shall be conducted without disrupting the decorum of the commission meeting. And if the individuals are disruptive in any way, they will be asked to end their live feed. If further disruption, they will be asked to leave and escorted out of the commission chambers. 3, those conducting live feeds must do so only from the designated media section. This rewording was assisted by the county attorney. I'd like you guys to take a look at those emails, take a look at the information, take a look at the opines of the AG. And if you guys choose to still go against the opines of the AG, I'd like you guys to know 2 things. 1, if you vote for this resolution as is, you put the county at risk for winning litigation, not just by one person, but potentially all of Montgomery County. And 2, you place a level of distrust in our county government, considering there's a current level of anxiety towards this legislative body in the community. Commissioners, I want to thank you for your time.
Is there a second to the motion? Commissioner Bill, Ms. Jackson, do you have that printed?
No, I do not, and I was not able to get it all. Thank you.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second to amend 1983. Ms. Jackson, Commissioners, do we need to read that to you again? Ms. Jackson, would you mind reading it?
I do not. If I can locate it, just one moment. I see the AG's opinions in your emails. Commissioner, I do not see where you had the 3 amendments.
Do you have it?
I have it too, if it's the one I sent to you.
Do you have it in writing so I can?
I do. Let me read it.
Okay.
Am I on?
Yeah.
Mr. Commissioner Knight sent me a form, a motion, proposed motion, and I dressed up his form on it. And I'm just looking for it, Commissioner. Make sure I read it correctly. I move to amend Resolution 1983 to delete paragraph 7 of the Resolution 1983 in its entirety and replace it with : 1, the public may conduct live stream provided they submit notice of their intent to do so within a minimum of 48 hours prior to each meeting in writing to the county mayor's office. 2, live streaming and recording of any kind shall be conducted without disrupting the decorum of the commission meeting, and if the individuals are disruptive in any way, they will be asked to end their live feed, : if further disruption, they will be asked to leave and escorted out of the commission chambers. 3, those conducting live feeds must do so only from the designated media section. Though that's his proposed amendment.
And we have a second. Any discussion on the amendment itself? Commissioner Bill? Okay, if y'all would clear that. And
2 questions. First question is, where would that designated area be?
The part of the motion that's not amended says that the chair will set the designated area.
So as of right now, we don't know what that would be, where that would be?
it's going to be back in that back corner right there.
Back here?
Or possibly over there if it gets overfilled.
So there will be seating back there for people that wish to live stream. They would be able to do that. If this passes, they'll be able to do that in those areas, not here, but back here. Am I understanding?
I think where I personally, I think you need to understand that when anyone proposes legislation, it kind of runs through me at some point, and I help get it into a proper form. I'm not endorsing it or not, but to explain what it means is sometimes difficult because it's there in black and white, and it's written in a particular way to convey a particular understanding. So this motion says the chair will designate that area because it may be a fluid flowing thing. Now, I will tell you that the constitutional requirements would be that it be an appropriate area. It'd have to be accessible under ADA standards, it'd have to be big enough for the reasonable crowd, would have to be set up appropriately, just like our open meetings have to be appropriately set up. But it is fluid in that the chair would designate the area.
I'm just worried about there being adequate room in case, let's say we had 20 people that wanted to live stream and they went through the process. Are we going to have enough room for it?
Well, you know, we do lots of things in life based upon what our historical data tells us. And in this commission chambers, our open meetings requirements are that we have it open for citizens to come in and see or watch the open meeting being conducted and hear what the commissioners deliberate on. So we have to have adequate facilities, but if we had a big enough demand, this room only holds so many, there's a finite ability. So we would look at, if we really knew we were going to have 700 people, we'd probably try to find another facility to hold our meeting. But historical data says this is adequate. Historical data would be used to establish the size of that designated area.
Okay. And my other question is, have we in recent time had an issue with someone being disruptive doing a live stream?
Well, I don't know that.
I don't mean to interrupt either one of you, but I don't believe that's related to the amendment itself. I think it's related to the motion itself, to the overall 19, whatever the number is, 1983. And I certainly don't want to stop the dialogue, but I think that's relatable to 1983 as a whole.
Well, but it mentions in Commissioner Knight's amendment what will happen if we are disruptive, or if they are disruptive. So I do feel that it does relate to the amendment.
If I may. And this is important, and I understand it, and I'll ask for your patience. It took me a couple of semesters of constitutional law to get through constitutional law, so we're trying to do a little bit of a cram course here. That's really redundant. If someone's disruptive with or without a camera, we're going to take care of that under the law. Under the law. So it's a bit redundant, but that's what the commissioner put in his motion, so I helped him get it into proper form, sure enough, but he had that in his motion, so I didn't take it out.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other discussion on the amendment? Commissioner Lewis on the amendment. Oh, Commissioner Smith, on the amendment? On the amendment, Commissioner Gannon.
So since this is talking about the live streaming, which has basically been all over the internet and all the other stuff, and I've heard things about security and everything else, can you give us the lowdown or the skinny on this whole part when we talk about security and this and that? Because this will change the entire format of this resolution if we change this by this amendment. So I believe that we can discuss that. This has to deal with the amendment, I believe.
I think it does, and again, my apologies, this may take a little time. Commissioner Knight asked me to talk with him about this, and I sent him some materials earlier in the week, and I talked with him about that by phone because we couldn't get together on a meeting based on his schedule. But I'm just doing this so I can be a bit faster. I want to show you the materials I think I sent to Commissioner Knight. If not, they're materials I've developed. Skip, can you show that first one up there? This is, go to the first page. This is the Open Meetings Act that you're required to be under. And the Open Meetings Act, it isn't going to hurt you, frankly, to have a bit of a refresher. When two of y'all get together, you can't talk about county business unless it's on notice. Can't talk about it on a train, can't talk about it on a plane, can't talk about it on a car, can't talk about it in a bar. I mean, if two of you happen to be at church together, you can't talk about county business. Go on down, Skip. If you have a chance meeting, And here's the definition that says that. When any two or more of you are gathered together. Skip on down a little bit. Skip. There we go. All right. Nothing in this section says you can't end up in the same restaurant. You can't end up there talking, but you can't use that as an excuse or an explanation to do public business because the public wasn't notified, so they can't see or hear it. Okay, Skip, move on down a little bit. Now, this section does not directly apply to the open meetings of a Montgomery County Commission. But this section discusses whether or not under an electronic conducted meeting that you're not allowed to do, you are in a different provision, but not in this one. Under an electronic meeting, it says that a governing body may, but is not required to allow participation by electronic or other means of communications for the benefit of the public. Please let me emphasize, that section deals with small bodies, but it talks about what happens in an open meeting. Those small bodies are subject to the Open Meetings Act, but you don't have to broadcast those. There's no requirement of broadcast at all. Let's see where we are. So there's your Open Meetings Act. Nowhere in the Open Meetings Act is there discussed gathering information. Gathering information is covered in the Open Records Act. The Open Meetings Act says you must take minutes. And the Open Records Act says you must give the public copies of your minutes and copies of all your documents, but nothing says you must do that. Frankly, Montgomery County, totally because it wants to, I don't know whose idea it was, and I never was involved in it, but we do broadcast on the internet, however the internet works, the full Montgomery County meeting in its entirety with all of your audio and all of your mics so everyone can be heard. So we do that free gratis. Next document, I'm trying to go fast. Next document is an October of '95 Attorney General opinion. What's interesting is in October of 1995, the Attorney General answered these questions. Scroll down, Skip. Go back up just a little bit. The questions are a city ordinance prohibiting any camera, camcorder, or other photographic equipment from a city board meeting would not violate the First Amendment. That was their opinion. Because free speech, doesn't, when someone says they have free speech and the right to speak, nobody in here has the right to stand up and start talking to y'all. The public's allowed to come, but free speech doesn't give you the right to shout fire in a public theater. Constitutional rights are constantly limited or restricted by government. People who walk freely down the street can be stopped and frisked in the right set of circumstances. A person with a piece of land can be told how he can be rezoned. And a person who lives next to him can be told, you've got to live with it. We pass zoning laws that infringe upon the rights of property owners and their property. I just say all that because that's the constitutional argument. The second opinion they gave was a city ordinance prohibits any camcorder or other photographic equipment would not violate the Open Meetings Act. Now, what you need to know, because I want to be forthright and get this out there so y'all can debate what you want to do, the next opinion, flip down just a little bit more. Here's where it says, the Supreme Court has generally stated that under the First Amendment, the right to speak and publish does not provide for the unrestrained right to gather information. Kind of an important concept, gathering information. Now we're getting into the recording. Go to the next document, number 3. This is the opinion that in 1995 was addressing the question, the proposed ordinance of the City of Bells would make it unlawful for anyone to bring any video or photographic equipment into an official meeting of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. Further prohibited taking photographs of anyone in the room during an official meeting. Would such an ordinance violate the First Amendment, Tennessee Opens Meeting Act, or otherwise be invalid? The opinion was, it doesn't violate the First Amendment, the U.S. Constitution. doesn't violate the Tennessee Constitution directly, because they said it's our opinion that the Tennessee constitutional right to open government is embodied in the Open Meetings Act. In other words, those are the rules that make government open. This is the opinion, though, where they said, just 2 months after their other opinion, just 2 months later, they said, bringing in a video recorder or an audio recorder would not be so would not be so much a disruption that it would be a proper prohibition. You can, however, put them in an area where they don't disrupt the meeting. You can create rules that put them in a particular circumstance so they don't disrupt the meeting. Because all they addressed in this opinion in 1995 was whether audio and video equipment recording could be banned. Audio and video recording equipment circa 1985, not live broadcasting. They actually make some comments about live broadcasting and some of the other areas of government like courtrooms and so forth, and whether there was a public interest to be served by that. So skip all the way down. Skip, do I have any yellow in that? This whole opinion, very important, very good. Go back. Here's what the standard is from the 1995 opinion, which dealt with video and audio recording and said you can restrict their area. This office is further of the opinion that city governing bodies, that would be applicable to you, you could say county governing bodies, may regulate the use of such devices, but only in a manner reasonably calculated to serve the public safety and welfare or the interest in conducting efficient and orderly meetings. So it doesn't say you can't restrict something. It says just the opposite. It says, for example, a city council may prevent cameras from being operated in a manner that actually disrupts the council's meeting. Disruption was the issue there. But the standard that would be argued in court, if you were arguing this opinion, is a portable, real-time, visual, simulcast device, would restricting that by prohibiting that disrupt a council's proceedings? That's for y'all to argue about whether you say it does or doesn't. I think you could argue that you could tackle that because it's just a different kind of equipment, technology. But the second standard is it something that presents a danger to the public safety? Or the third thing, or that otherwise prevents the council from conducting an orderly and efficient meeting. So that's the 1995 standard. Go to the next document, please. I put this in here because in 2014, this was a letter that dealt with a similar issue. And the thing that I thought, do I have some yellow in that? Yeah. In the footnote, this is 2014. This letter focuses on the case law in other states because to date, 2014, this issue has not been litigated in Tennessee. Additionally, the letter does not address the Tennessee Journal opinion that has been released on the issue. It's my understanding you've been providing a copy of that. In other words, it's another opinion letter. But the point I wanted you to see was the 1995 technology. If somebody says there's just no difference in a video recorder and a live broadcast, fine, they make that argument. If someone says there is a difference, if someone says it's not disruptive or it is disruptive, make that argument. If someone says it is or isn't a security problem, you make that argument. Frankly, sometimes we do things every night here that are subject to my saying to you, the vote you just took may produce litigation, and the vote you just took, we may or may not win that litigation. That's a part of the serious nature of the decisions you make. What I do is try to advise you on what will be litigated. So the question that will be litigated is the one I pointed out to you. is it reasonable to restrict live time broadcasts because it's disruptive to the meeting, because it's a security concern, or that last third point of the opinion from 95, or otherwise prevents the council commission from conducting an orderly and efficient meeting. So you got a 95 opinion about video recorders. Now, the way your rules work, if there's a resolution of a certain type about animal control, it goes to the Animal Control Committee. If it's about rules, it goes to the Rules Committee. If it goes over here, it goes to this committee. So during this committee process, which has been ongoing for months, there was a stated concern about the fact that live feeds do present an additional security obstacle. I'll let the sheriff speak to that, who's the constitutional officer who's supposed to take care of this building and who by statute is supposed to take care of your security when you're here. He's got that duty. Now, he could say, I think it's really a big problem, or he could say it's a little concern, but we could do this or do that. But the point is you get to decide, just like you did on that zoning case, is it safe, not safe? Is it a public good or a public bad? And you vote on that, we may get sued on that. So I think the sheriff should speak to whether he should tell you that what he thinks about whether it poses a security risk, and then you should decide, because that's a component. Frankly, it's a whole different modality, and so it may be a different, you may think now it's disruptive of the meeting. I mean, what they talked about was video recording a piece of equipment 24 years ago. The only other thing I'll say is, I think that the people at CTAS and the Tennessee County Commissioners Association, Mr. Curtis, who I do not know, they work hard, they do a good job, they give us advice, they help us all the time. I don't believe Mr. Robertson is an attorney. And that's, thank goodness not everybody is, right? So, but I don't think he's an attorney. These are serious constitutional issues. That's why I put all these documents up there. I'll give every one of you a copy of them. But the question is, do you think that's a reasonable restriction on the public? And if you want to talk about, no, it's not reasonable, if you want to make those comments, that's for y'all to argue and to vote. I just help you get it in a form so you can vote on it. Thank you.
Commissioner Lewis, do you want to speak to the amendment?
Yes, Mayor. I have a question. In the amendment, does it not say you have to submit a form within 48 hours to live stream?
I think what you're speaking to is if somebody requests to address the commission, I believe that's 72 hours. Correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't that correct, Shelley?
But I think in his amendment, he wrote that
48
hours.
That's correct.
To submit a form to live stream.
Correct.
Okay, so what if they don't submit the form? Then we're not going to let them live stream, right?
If the amendment passes and the resolution passes, then if they don't submit 48 hours in advance, then no, they would not be allowed to, the way I interpret it.
I mean, so if we just take the 48 hours is what we're doing. We're not allowing, it takes a form out. I mean, with this amendment, you got to submit a form to live stream. But if you don't submit the form, you can't live stream anyway. So we're just taking the form out, saying you can't live stream. I mean, anyway, okay.
Well, I think he asked a question, and I think he's making a point, but sure, if you want to speak, but I really think we should speak to the amendment. But yeah, sure, go ahead, Commissioner Knight.
Well, according to the opines of the AG, the Attorney General of the state of Tennessee, you have to make reasonable restrictions, not a complete outright ban. Again, I provided you the information, and in accordance with opine number 95-126, as stated, with the validity of banned photographic equipment. It says, "The proposed ordinance blanket ban on bringing video or photographic equipment into an official meeting of the board, as well as its prohibition against taking photographs of anyone at the meetings, would violate Article 1, Section 19 of the Tennessee Constitution." Now, the idea is to ensure that we're ensuring safety and security, right? As presented by Mr. Harvey. So we're providing that reasonable safety and security without outright banning, as stated by the legal staff. So I'm going to read you this. Per our legal staff, this is from CTAS. That's County Technical Assistance, right? They could regulate it to the extent necessary to prevent disruption of the proceedings, but I do not think an outright ban of live streaming would be right under the AG's opinion. In addition to discussing the matter on multiple occasions with the Montgomery County Attorney, I'm quoting, "We have also received the questions from Cumberland, Hamlin, Hawkins, Henry, Marshall, Perry, Warren, and a handful of other counties. The AG opinion," again I'm quoting, "AG opinion referenced by all is AG opinion number 95-126, in which the AG opines that they cannot do an outright ban on cameras, but they could place reasonable restrictions on the use of cameras. The opinion specifically states, the office is further of the opinion that city governing bodies may regulate the use of such devices, but only in a manner reasonably calculated to serve the public safety and welfare or the interest in conducting efficient and orderly public meetings." I'll go on even further. Per their legal staff, again, "I think the spirit of the law would cover live streaming just like recording. The AG didn't address live streaming in the opinion in 1995 because there wasn't such a thing. I also think the same rationale would apply to commissioners," meaning that would apply to me specifically. "The body could set rules to protect safety and preserve decorum in the meetings, but I don't think an outright ban would be okay." And I went on to ask the same question in that email. So going on the same rationale, they would not be able to outright ban commissioners either. Am I reading that correct? And he said correct. So the point is, we're providing that reasonable method of providing that service to our community. It violates, if we do an outright ban, it would definitively violate Article 1, Section 19 of the Tennessee Constitution and the Opens Meeting Act, according to that same opine. That wasn't showed in that overhead display. I gave you the documentation, commissioners. Take a look at it. Do not put our county at risk for a winning litigation, as stated to me, not just by our attorney.
Commissioner Knight, let's please stay on the amendment.
With all due respect, Mayor, I didn't disrupt anyone else, and I expect the same respect.
And I'm giving that, and I said
Great.
something to Commissioner Bill.
I am addressing the amendment as is. Not only by
Keep it on the
him,
amendment.
but also by
That's all I'm
CTAS.
asking.
That's fine, but also by CTAS and also by the Tennessee County Commissioners Association, that if we do this as is, we are running 100% risk of winning litigation. I'll go even further to quote Charlie Curtis. He says, "I'll be interested to see how they pan this out." Commissioners, we cannot afford a $100 million litigation. We can't afford a $200 million litigation because we want to monetize our YouTube, because we don't like it. We don't like live streaming. We can't do that. The county just cannot afford that. According to the opines of the AG, we are required to give the community the opportunity to do that, but within reason. And that information is provided to you. Please take a look at it.
Commissioner Knight, I have a question. What you mentioned, Mr. Curtis, who was the person from CTAS that provided you with that?
That is Mr. John hold on. His name is Jonathan Walden, yes.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Bill?
Thank you. I have two questions, and I'm not sure if maybe this is directed to the sheriff or not. My first question is if we proposed this because it is a security issue, what would submitting a form to do that in advance, how would that change this supposed security issue?
I didn't propose it. You would probably have to ask Commissioner Knight.
Well,
Is he? Oh. So
I mean,
that's just,
I'm assuming what you're asking is if in fact it is a security issue.
Right.
And we're going to require somebody to request it 48 hours in advance, is it still a security issue?
Correct.
I don't know I don't know the answer to that question.
I would really like to ask the sheriff, actually, to get his thoughts, because I haven't heard from him yet.
Sure, I'd be glad to answer that.
And Sheriff, before you start, and I say, I'm interrupting you and Mr. Harvey. With all due respect, we have a motion and a second on the floor for an amendment.
Correct.
It doesn't talk about security. It truly doesn't. And I understand what you're saying, Mr. Bill. I truly do. But the body of the motion, the entire resolution, is what deals with those type things. But go ahead, Sheriff.
Well, I think that question was answered. That does not remove the security concern of it. It just creates an avenue for the public to do a live stream from a particular location. So it does not address the security issue, that it is.
And then my second question would be, what is the security concern?
Go ahead. Well, if the mayor wants to go into that, I think anything that requires an individual to record certain aspects of a public meeting or a public place could create an avenue for a wrongdoer to do something against us. I know that these chambers right here, this very building, the building next door, the public safety complex across the street, we all have security plans to keep those places safe. And this rule would be no different. Whenever it came up, the recording that goes on in the chambers is something that we're very aware of. You know, we're watching people in this building constantly to make sure that you're safe and that they're safe. So when they carry on a recording of areas of this building that may not make us safe, then that's a security concern that needs to be addressed. So I think that this rule is a reasonable rule to help prevent a potential bad security issue from happening in this building. So the only thing that I can answer to you is that, yes, it is a security concern on my end. As far as going into more detail about those security concerns, I think is a security concern in itself. So I'm going to leave it at that, and I would just respectfully ask this commission to kind of consider that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gannon?
Sheriff answered my question. I was going to ask him a security question. as
Okay.
well.
Commissioner Pritchard?
Question for Mr. Harvey, Mayor. Mr. Harvey, in a courtroom, can a judge ban recording and devices?
You know, I've spent a lot of time boning up on what commissions can do. I haven't checked the current status on courtrooms. I think that early on, I think one of the cases that's cited in one of the documents I showed you is a Texas case where they did ban it. And I think over time that was relaxed, and some courtrooms allow it, but they have other restrictions. I mean, they ban cell phones, cell phone use. You can't show a juvenile because that would be prohibited for other reasons. I think that the courtroom's a special place. Commission chamber's a special place too. But the courtrooms have some different rules that have evolved. And frankly, you know, this one's been stagnant since 1995 over audio and video recordings. So the courtrooms have kind of evolved. We all can think of courtroom TV that we've seen, but I think that's largely controlled by the judges with their special rules.
So primarily, when they do ban, it's primarily for security purposes, and that's it.
Security and fair trial considerations. I think in courtrooms they thought that some constitutional rights of the defendants might be breached because they weren't getting a fair trial because of the way they were portrayed in the press. And so sometimes I think that was a different element that we wouldn't have here, the fair trial consideration.
But not the constitutional rights consideration.
Well, you know, people have constitutional rights.
I'm sorry to interrupt y'all, but we've got an amendment that we're discussing. And
It's okay if you can interrupt
I
me.
say it with all due respect, but there is an amendment. I don't have it in front of me. I don't know exactly what it says, but I think we're getting outside of the realm of what the amendment is. I think, again, it's my opinion, when you get back to the entire resolution, those are the questions that come forward at that time. I may be wrong, but if I'm wrong, Mr. Harvey, you correct me.
I think it's a call, and you make that call, and
And I'm not trying to damper discussion. I promise you, Ms. Pritchard, I'm not trying to. And anybody else that I've said to, I'm not trying to prevent you from the right to talk. I just think there's a point that there is a time to talk. Commissioner Lewis, you're up next, but you've already spoke to the amendment, so I'm going to go to Mr. Harper, who hasn't spoke, and then I'll come back to you and Mr. Knight.
Thank you, Mayor. And this applies directly to the amendment that we're discussing. There is a difference between when we have a citizen speaker, they have to apply 72 hours before being able to speak to us. Yet if they're going to live stream, we have 48 hours. That seems to me to be discriminatory, and I would like those to be the same length if possible. I don't understand the logic as to why you have 48 hours for one, 72 hours for the other. I mean, that could easily be construed as discriminatory. What's the opinion on that, Mr. Harvey?
well, it's different. Respectfully, Commissioner, one is a citizen's request to speak to the commission, and we've put in that 72-hour rule. It's not the exact same thing to live stream an actual meeting. So I think you could draw the distinction that they're different, and therefore they don't have to be the same. But whether they should or shouldn't be the same, or should or shouldn't exist, I leave to this body to decide. I don't think you have a discriminatory claim on that.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Lewis, would you like to speak to the amendment? You were in front of Commissioner Knight, and you went away, but I don't
I just
want
wanted to call for the question.
Well, I'm going to allow Mr. Knight to speak then. I'm not trying to hamper anybody from speaking. I just want us to speak on the motion to amend. Commissioner Knight.
Two things. One, on the motion to amend, I have no qualms about adding in a designated area to ensure that we're not positioning cameras to key locations, key staff, or what have you. Someplace up in the top tier where it's focused just down here at this particular angle. I have no qualms of...
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think item 8 takes care of that.
Right. So with that, I have no qualms with that at all. My issue is ensuring that we're not in violation of Tennessee State Constitution and the Opens Meeting Act in accordance with the AG's opines. Second, I'd just like to address Commissioner Pritchard's comments previously. That's addressed, that situation with criminal cases and trials is addressed on page 4 of that same opine that I provided to you within that packet that's on your desk, where it says on page 4, it says, the Tennessee Supreme Court has historically applied analytical standards similar to those applied by the federal courts as to parallel constitutional protections. Just as federal courts have treated camera bans in the courtroom context as manner restrictions on the right of access, so we would expect our state courts to treat the ban under consideration here as a resembling a time and place manner restraint to protect speech and would subject such regulations to an intermediate level of scrutiny. It goes on further to tell you that in this particular case, it doesn't apply. The time and, time and place and manner doesn't apply in this particular instance. So for us, that time and place doesn't apply where we're having a criminal trial. We're voting on items. So we're not worrying about an individual who's standing at the podium whose life is held in the balance. So we're not protecting their particular civil liberties. Right now, what we're voting on is ensuring that we protect the civil liberties of our constituents, of the individual's constitutional rights. That's what we're looking at. And that information is all that information is presented to you in that particular packet. If you take the time, take a look at it, and you'll see. Again, we can't afford winning litigation against our county. We can make reasonable restrictions according to the AG. However, we cannot do an outright ban. So whatever we need to do in order to ensure that we're providing that reasonable restriction, I'm fine with, so long as we're not outright banning it.
Any other discussion on Mr. Knight's amendment to 1983? We are now voting on the amendment that was read by Mr. Harvey. We have a motion from Mr. Knight, a second from Mr. Beal. If you would, please register your vote. This is on the amendment. Would anyone like to change your vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
You have 8 yeses, 13 noes, and 0 abstentions.
All right, amendment number 2 fails. We are now voting on 1983 as amended. Commissioner Butts.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want everyone to know this is about security. We're not trying to take live feeding. We provide it. There's cameras all over the place. You're getting an official Montgomery County live feed. We're not taking the ability to let anybody stop recording. We're just taking their ability for security reasons with the live stream. I am in favor of, I will be voting yes on this amendment, and I would ask my fellow commissioners to do the same. Thank you, Mayor.
Commissioner Knight.
Again, safety and security within reason as provided by the opines of the AG, as provided by CTAS, as provided by the Tennessee County Commissioners Association, each with the same consensus. We provide reasonable service without outright banning the constituents' ability to come out here and hold us accountable as local elected officials. Yes, we have our YouTube. I get that. But we do not take away the right of a constituent to be able to do what is necessary to provide transparency and accountability by us.
Thank you. Commissioner Joe Smith.
I think we're kind of beating a dead horse here. We live stream every single meeting in this commission chamber every single month on the first and second Monday of every single month. If you're worried about Facebook users or Twitter or YouTube or whoever to watch your live stream, send them the link to the YouTube. It's that simple, point blank, period. Our sheriff has deemed this a security issue. It's very easy, and we're not saying that we're regulating all cameras or anything like that, as it says in this opine. We are moving everything to one secure location and allowing them to record audio or visual, which is what the Attorney General's opinion was about. Had nothing to do with live stream. Yes, has media changed? Yes, but if that's the case, the Attorney General needs to come out and give another Attorney General's opinion on live stream itself. But as it stands, we provide a transparent and very reasonable access to this commission chamber through a YouTube channel. Whereas it provides all of the context of what each one of us is talking about, because when this little red light comes on our microphone, it goes hot. Then the camera angle changes. It'll be up there or back there, and it shows each one of us as we speak, or whoever has come to talk to the commission chambers. So what we're doing here is we're providing a service. We're providing them that constitutional right to have access to this chamber, whether they're disabled and from home, or whether they're sitting right over there in the chair and they want to pull up YouTube because they might not be able to hear properly, or they want to be able to turn on closed caption. I think this is just squabble, honestly, over something we already provide. And I'd ask all my fellow commissioners to vote in favor of this as a security issue, deemed a security issue by our sheriff, who's in charge of security of these chambers. It's as simple as that. We provide these services. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Tangi Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say that Montgomery County has been and will always be transparent. We encourage all citizens to come out and participate firsthand in our government issues, just like we invite them to come out and vote. We have also gone above and beyond to provide a professional live stream via YouTube. This is a service that's not offered by a lot of other counties in Tennessee. I've spoke to them. Lastly, I'd like to point out that there are very limited number of governmental buildings that actually allow video live stream. Therefore, I simply don't understand where this anti-transparency stance is coming from. I don't think this is an anti-transparency. This is about self-promotion. And it's caused unnecessary rage in our community. This whole week, I encourage all citizens to subscribe to our YouTube channel and for my fellow commissioners to vote yes to Resolution 1983. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner Knight.
So, all that, right? Yes, we provide our YouTube. Let's advertise it. Great. But is that okay to take away someone else's right to do that? And not necessarily me or Bill or whoever else. If someone wants to come here and provide that live stream to whoever, that should be their constitutional right, which it is. Whether or not they want to use our YouTube feed or not, that should be their right. They should have that opportunity to choose, not us choosing for them. That is just wrong. I urge you, commissioners, please, we cannot afford winning litigation at all. Again, that consensus by a team of legal staff, not just one, consensus by the Tennessee County Commissioners Association, consensus provided to you here, Harvey himself. It's possible. It's there. Think about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Beal.
Thank you, Mayor. I was okay up until I heard the word self-promotion, and I'll be honest with you, I'm getting sick and tired of hearing that. We've been accused of self-promoting. We've been accused of political grandstanding simply because we're active on social media. This is one of many tools that I use to keep in contact with constituents all over the county, not just in my district. So here's my question. What happens if we stop doing the YouTube? And what's next? Are we going to have to start checking our cell phones at the door? Is that coming anytime soon?
I don't propose to stop the YouTube, but I don't think by law we're required to have it. But I don't propose to stop it either. It was here before I got here, and I think it's a very convenient thing for our citizens.
But is that ever going to happen, though?
Well, I don't know.
Right, because we've been doing this for 3.5 years. You know, you can go back and look since early 2016, we've been doing these. It apparently wasn't a security issue before. Why is it now? All I'm asking is what's going to happen next? That's it.
I'm not trying to belittle or denigrate your question, except I think that asking someone to project the future is difficult. If one of you commissioners calls me and says, I'd like to know how I can present a resolution to halt the YouTube feed, I'll help you draft that so you can bring that in and you can win or lose your argument among these other 20 people. But, so I mean, when you say what will happen next, one of the 21 people who controls that would be you, and the other 20 control what comes before this body, and I would help you draft it, but I am not aware of the genesis of anything like that.
Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The one thing that I haven't heard is, I haven't heard anyone say that they watched the YouTube feed while they were in this chamber and something was missing. I haven't heard that. I haven't heard anyone say that there was a problem or a discrepancy or anything missing, anything removed, anything altered, anything changed from the YouTube feed. So if the problem is a question of transparency, I would think that there would be some evidence to that effect. The thing that bothers me about this more than anything is, at the time of the two tragic mass shootings that happened this past week, we had had more mass shootings in America this year than there had been days in the year. And I think everybody's gotten numb to that. I think that's a big problem. Someone mentioned to me on Sunday that we had two tragic events happen in this country, but the headline on the newspaper was about sidewalks. And I think that that's a problem. We've gotten numb to the fact that we have been extremely fortunate here that we have not had an incident here. And now that we have the head law enforcement of the county saying that this activity that has been going on is a security issue, we are willing to ignore that simply because we are numb to the fact that tragic events happen in our country. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Bryant?
Mayor, I'd just like to say that I think that this commission has, each and every person has had something to say about this particular resolution. And Mr. Lewis called for the question earlier, and you allowed Mr. Knight to speak. So I think it's time that this body stands up and votes one way or the other on this resolution.
So are you calling for the question?
I will.
We have two people in the queue. Mr. Harper, you have not spoken to the resolution. Mr. Knight, you have as amended. I'm going to allow Mr. Harper to speak, and then we'll have the call for the question.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it. Commissioner Bryant, I appreciate your words very much. One thing that I'm struck with, and maybe I have an odd sense of humor about this, maybe I'm the only one that has a sense of humor about this tonight, but last month, we passed a 42-cent property tax increase, and we discussed that less than we have discussed this live streaming debate. And I'm ashamed of that. I'm ashamed of it. Is this more important than that was last month? I think not. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Knight, I'm not going to cut you off, but if you would, just please try to be quick.
I'm just going to say that I'll continue to live stream in consistence with the opines of the AG unless anyone can prove me wrong. So whatever happens here tonight, it's up to you. You guys are making the decision, right? I already know how I'm going to vote. Think about your constituents. It's up to you. Thank you.
Commissioner Bryant, you calling for the question?
Well, I already called for the question. My question is this: are we voting on this resolution with the amendment that we discussed earlier?
Yes, ma'am. It's the first amendment. That was the amendment to rule number 5.
All right.
The question's been called for. Is there a second? With multiple seconds, I don't think we need to vote on it. I think everybody's ready to vote. So I won't actually call for a vote on cease and discussion. So, Commissioners, we're now voting on 1983 as amended. That was, I'll call it Mr. Gannon's amendment, and that was the amendment to rule number 5, where he added some language not excluding Montgomery County staff and elected officials, and it went on to tell about how an individual, if they wanted to distribute materials, what that process would be. So if you would, please register your vote. 1983 as amended. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
You have 20 yeses, 1 no, 0 abstentions.
Thank you, ma'am. Next on our agenda is Resolution 1984's initial resolution authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $7,500,000 in general obligation bonds of Montgomery County, Tennessee. Is there a motion for approval? Commissioner Pritchard, second. Commissioner Riccone. Any discussion? Commissioner Beal.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to make the proposal that this go on referendum.
Are you making a proposal or are you making?
I would like to make the motion that we put this on referendum.
On referendum.
Yes, sir.
We have a motion to put item 1984, I would assume because 1985 is similar resolution or similar language. Is there a second?
We need to get that in proper form.
Well, I think he said he made a motion for this to go. Well, you go ahead.
Commissioner, again, keeping in helping make sure everybody gets their motions on the floor right. This resolution is for an initial bond that is allowed by the statute that's cited in it. There's a second section that calls for an election bond. That's the one you're talking about, the election referendum bond. So his motion would be to move forward with the bond, but in the election process, requiring a referendum. The motion as it is for you to vote for an initial GO bond letting of $7.5 million. Your motion is to require under a separate statute a referendum. Yes, okay. That's the proper form, Mayor, only because that means this organization will vote yes on the bond and will order a special election to occur as referendum.
We have a motion. I don't see a second. So we're back on the original resolution 1984. Any other discussion? If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
You have 16 yeses, 4 noes, 1 abstention.
Thank you, ma'am. Resolution 1985 is a resolution authorizing the issuance of interest-bearing general obligation bond anticipation notes in the aggregate principal amount not to exceed $7,500,000 of Montgomery County, Tennessee, making provisions for the issuance, sale, and payment of said notes, establishing the terms thereof and the disposition of proceeds therefrom, and providing for the levy of taxes for the payment of principal of and interest on the notes. Is there a motion for approval? Commissioner Lewis, second. Commissioner Gannon, any discussion on 1985? If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
You have 16 yeses, 5 noes, 0 abstentions.
Resolution 1986 is a resolution authorizing the issuance, sale, and payment of up to $4,300,000 of capital outlay notes of Montgomery County, Tennessee, and levying ad valorem taxes for the payment of the notes. Is there a motion for approval? Commissioner Pritchard, is there a second? Commissioner Joe Smith, any discussion? If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
You have 17 yeses, 4 noes, 0 abstentions.
Thank you, ma'am. I don't think we have any unfinished business under our reports. The county clerk's report. Ms. Jackson, would you like to read your report?
Thank you. Comes Kelly A. Jackson, County Clerk, Montgomery County, Tennessee, and presents the County Clerk's report for the month of July 2019. I hereby request the persons named on the list of new applicants to the office of Notary Public be elected. The oath and bond of the appointing county official and oaths of the deputy county official, sheriff's deputies, judicial commissioners, and elected county official are approved as taken. This report shall be spread upon the minutes of the Board of County Commissioners. You have one name that needs to be read into the minutes, which is Millard House II, Director of Schools. You received your list of notary applicants last Monday. You do not have any that are signed by personal surety.
Is there a motion to approve the clerk's report? Commissioner Ray, second. Commissioner Gannon, any discussion on the clerk's report? If you would, please register your vote. Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
You have 21 yeses, 0 nos, 0 abstentions.
Thank you, ma'am. At this time, I'll turn the floor over to the chairman of the nominating committee, Commissioner Gannon.
There it goes. Thank you, Mayor Durrett. The nominating committee met last week. We would like to enter the following nomination in as a motion. For Legislative Liaison Committee, Commissioner Chris Resnick is nominated to fill the unexpired term of Charlie Keene to expire July of 2020, and we enter that as a motion.
Is there a second? Commissioner Bryant, any discussion on the nominating committee nominations? If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
You have 20 yeses, 0 nos, 1 abstention.
Thank you, ma'am. Under county mayor nominations, without objection, I will take the Building and Codes Committee and the Library Board all in one motion. So the Building and Codes Committee, it's a 3-year term. Commissioner Lisa Pritchard nominated to replace Commissioner Arnold Hodges for a 3-year term to expire August 2022. And Commissioner Walker Woodruff nominated to replace Commissioner Garland Johnson for a 3-year term to expire August 2022. And on the Library Board, James Marshall is nominated to serve his second 3-year term to expire July 2022. Is there a motion for approval? Commissioner Riccone, second. Commissioner Keene, any discussion? If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
You have 19 yeses, 0 nos, 2 abstentions.
Thank you, ma'am. Under county mayor appointments, again, these will require commission approval, and without objection, I'll do the Loss Control Committee and the Senior Citizens Board. I see no objection, so the Loss Control Committee. Commissioner Lisa Pritchard appointed to replace Commissioner Arnold Hodges for a 2-year term to expire August 2021. Jennifer Hood appointed to replace Tim Swa for a 2-year term to expire August 2021. Commissioner Chris Rasnick has been serving the unexpired term of Monroe Gildersleeve and is reappointed to serve his first 2-year term to expire August 2021. And Commissioner James Lewis has been serving the unexpired term of Ron Sokol and is reappointed to serve his first 2-year term to expire August 2021. And on the Senior Citizens Board, Stephanie Mason is appointed to fill the unexpired term of Juan Reyes with term to expire April 2020. Is there a motion for approval? Commissioner Lewis, second. Commissioner Johnson, any discussion? If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
You have 19 yeses, 0 nos, 2 abstentions.
Thank you, ma'am. Under our announcements, the Veteran Service Organization will be celebrating 75 years of service to veterans at a special event on Saturday, August 24th from 10 o'clock a.m. to 2 o'clock p.m. at Veterans Plaza. We would invite all of our commissioners and the public to come join this celebration, and you should have a flyer on your desk. You're also, commissioners, urged to attend the Tennessee County Commissioners Association regional meeting taking place in Springfield, Tennessee on September 12th at 5:30 p.m. We do have a van that will be available for those wanting to ride. However, if it fills up, some may need to carpool. If you would, just let Ms. Shelley Baggett know if you have planned to attend so we can report the number of attendees from Montgomery County. And a reminder, due to the Labor Day holiday, the September informal meeting will be on Tuesday, September 3rd, beginning at 6 o'clock p.m. And I don't think we have any other announcements. Sheriff, I'll call on you to adjourn the meeting.
All rise. Well, yes, oh yes, this Honorable Board of County Commissioners now stands adjourned. Now may God save this state and this Honorable Board of County Commissioners.
Thank you, sir. Just a reminder, we do have a public hearing for our comprehensive growth plan. This is our second one. Mr. Tyndall, I don't know if you have any kind of presentation at all, or we're just going to wait and see if anybody wants to speak. Sir? Yeah, unless somebody wants to see the presentation, is there anybody that would like to speak regarding the urban growth plan? Anyone to speak regarding the urban growth plan update?
And I'll be free to stay here and discuss this map if anyone wants to come up and talk and learn a little more about this.
Okay, thank you, sir.